please. Hello. Okay, now the audio's sorted. Right, should we stop and start again then?
Okay.
Right. Shall I stop streaming? Or should we just...
just run the titles. Let's
again?
Go for it.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to stop recording this end. How many people are listening?
We have 7 viewers.
Oh, blimey. Okay, right. Apologies to all 7 of you. We're going to sort this out. 2 seconds. Bear with us. Here we go.
To Stokes, who's onside. 1-0. Here's Sims. It's a good serve this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. That's stoppage time. Here's Letizia. Who better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white.
Hello and welcome. It is episode 68 of the Saints FC podcast. I am absolutely delighted to say that we are joined on the Saints FC podcast this week with Freddie from our good friends at The Ugly Inside, who are also broadcasting this podcast live out on their YouTube channel. And we think that there's now audio going out on that, and that's a good thing.
Indeed, there is audio now, John. I'm hearing a bit of a delay, but there is about 20 seconds delay. But it's good to see people already in the chat. So this will be audio only. So if you're expecting to see our funny faces, you'll only be seeing the face for radio today. Unfortunately, folks.
But do definitely get your questions in on the chat if you do want to interact with us live. If you're just catching up through your normal podcasting channel, we're going to be experimenting a little bit with this over the course of the season and trying to broadcast the Saints FC podcast live as we record it as well. A little bit of fun, hopefully makes it a little bit more interactive as well. There have been a few technical difficulties as we've got this going, as those of you who listened to me and Tom discussing the preview podcast. Anyway, Freddie, extra good news is there's some free beer on offer.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah. You sound like a man who likes free beer. So those of you who've been listening to the podcast for long enough might remember we had beer52.com sponsoring us before. They are coming in with another round of sponsorship again, beer52.com/Saints. That's the web address that you go to. And what happens when you go there? Well, you can get yourself a free crate of craft beer from all over the world. The Beer 52 people boast that they traverse the globe to find the best and most interesting beer from the greatest small batch breweries planet Earth has to offer. They get them from all over the world, also do loads of UK stuff. This month it is all UK based beers, or I think you have to include Ireland in that. And so what do you have to do to get hold of these 10 free beers, Freddie? Go to beer52.com/Saints and just pay for the postage. Postage is £4.95, so less than 50 pence per beer if you're including the cost of the postage.
It's a fantastic deal, actually. And to tell you the truth, I've tried it and abused it a few times before. And this is by no means a paid sponsorship for me. But you can get 2 selected boxes. You can select a dark box, which will give you a box of sort of stouts and porters. So if you're into your rich sort of chocolatey tones and flavors, then you can choose that one. Or you've also got the lighter box, which gives you a selection of sort of golden pale ales or Indian pale ales. Or if you're into your sort of really flavoursome kind of hoppy beers, it's my favorite. It's my personal favorite is the lighter tone. So get on it, folks. beer52.com/Saints.
Absolutely wonderful, Freddie. Thank you for that. Chipping in, helping me advertise, and getting a little bit of extra cash for the Saints FC podcast so we can carry on doing this. Right. What's better than free beer, Freddie?
Sorry, mate. We a bit of a delay there.
What's better than free beer?
3 points, I think.
Yes.
Correct answer.
There we go. So Saints racked up their first victory of the season at the weekend with a 2-0 win away to Brighton. Normally I like to do these kind of podcasts in chronological order. Do we want to cover the Liverpool game first and then go to Brighton away? So like build up towards a crescendo of enjoyment. Or do we want to start with Brighton away, go heavy at the start and then speak a little bit about Liverpool?
Hey, we don't want to start on a downer, do we? So, I mean, let's rewind 2 weeks and go to I guess 5 o'clock Saturday before last, and we can, I guess, dissect the Liverpool positives, and then we can end on the crescendo of 3 points.
Yeah. So, turning it around, you've probably all seen the highlights of the game against Liverpool if you weren't there yourself. It was an interesting game. Jason Dickey, one of our regular listeners, he emailed in saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, and the essence of his email was kind of same old Saints. It was very, very typical. We play really well, we create lots of chances, we don't take our chances, we have horrible errors, and we end up losing a game but playing quite well and having better XG and all of these things. But we can be positive about it, can't we? Because they are... Well, currently they're beating Man City. I know we're only 3 games into the season, and hopefully the current positions in the Premier League table won't tell you anything about the final league positions in the Premier League table. Otherwise, Saints are in trouble. But Liverpool are good, aren't they?
Liverpool are class above, aren't they? There's a huge gulf between there's a huge gulf already now between the top 2 sides in the division in Liverpool and Man City. Between the next 4 clubs, and I guess Spurs, Arsenal, United and Chelsea, they seem to be miles away from the standard that Liverpool and Man City are setting. And I guess you could say the rest of the division are, I guess, universes away from the standard of football that they've set. But I think fair play to Saints, we gave them a good run for their money and gave them certainly a scare in the last sort of 15 minutes of the game, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean... Obviously, you were at St Mary's for the game, Freddie. I gave up my ticket for my brother-in-law, who was an away fan in the home end. Apologies for everyone for that.
Oh,
he does behave himself. I have made sure of it. He gets very, very strict orders. He's not allowed to show any sort of emotion towards Liverpool. But let's quickly skip over that. But the Liverpool management team and the Liverpool players and the Liverpool fans actually have quite a lot of respect for Southampton, because at the end of last season we gave them a scare despite losing 3-1. And this season again we've given them a bit of a scare. I think they were better than us for long parts of the game, but also we were better than them for long parts of the game as well. And I think probably about midway through the first half up to half time we were better than them. Certainly we finished stronger than them. I mean, what did you make of it?
Well, I guess it was a bit of a sandwich, really, wasn't it? I guess we sort of grew into the game for the most part of the first half, played some good football, pressing hard at the pitch, pushing the defence into mistakes. But it was a real sort of sucker punch, wasn't it? Just before the half-time whistle, Sadio Mane, with absolutely no lift, actually, on that sort of ping that he puts in the top corner, gun clutching at thin air. But I guess, I mean, it's a bit of a sucker punch, really, to go into the break at half time, having sort of ascended into the game in the first half. But then when we come out after the break, we were still asleep. I think we were still napping from the break. I would have thought Ralph would have been in into lads at half time. And I guess Liverpool sort of took the advantage. I mean, Firmino, if we look at that goal, he had sort of 2 chances before he actually pulled the trigger to slot it away for 2-0.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think once it got to 2-0, I thought we were pretty much dead and buried. And I think this is the thing that I really take the most heart from, is that we weren't. We still kept going. We still kept pressing. Danny Ings got his reward for his pressing, and I think it was Match of the Day did some quite nice analysis of this. Or no, it wasn't Match of the Day. it was Carl Anker on The Athletic did some very nice analysis of this goal and how we'd successfully pressed Liverpool and how it was a sign of the kind of like tactical work that Hasenhüttl was doing. And we got our reward. And then you would have thought, though, that how could Danny Ings miss that chance at the end? I mean, Freddie, that's the kind of chance that I suspect, I've never seen you play football, but I'm pretty sure you'd be able to bang that one in.
I think most people would say even my nan could finish that opportunity. You know, I mean, to be fair to him, it's come at him such a speed. He's not had the time to kind of adjust his feet. That's what I'm defending, I guess. But it's the type of opportunity. I know you're well into your XG. That's got to be up there in almost a full 1, right? That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's kind of in the harder to miss than it is to score there.
But, you know, had he put that ball in the back of the net, it would have seen a historic victory, in fact. 2-2, as you say, sort of appearing dead and buried after Firmino's second goal. We've worked so hard to get back into the game. And as you mentioned, you know, we've finished the game, I guess, as the stronger team, growing into it. And it could be said that Liverpool's exploits in Europe earlier that week were coming back to sort of haunt them.
Nah, don't give them an excuse, Freddie. They've got all this money to throw around. They've been nabbing our players. They should be able to cope with European football and playing with us. But, you know, is it interesting you bring up XG? Because we did outscore Liverpool on XG. You know, maybe a shame that that's not how we get our results, but that's not football. And it's interesting as well, in the game against Burnley that we lost 3-0, we also outscored them on XG. And
to be honest, I don't think many people really understand the whole XG criteria. I guess it's a very niche.
Shall I have another go? I mean, because I've tried to explain this to Tom so many times. It basically rates the quality of the chances you have, doesn't it? So that Danny Ings chance where you're dead in front of goal, and it's almost like if you played that chance 10 times over, then, you know, they would score it 9 times, so therefore, and miss it once, and therefore your XG would be 0.9 because 9 times out of 10 you'd get it. And then Southampton's XG score against Liverpool, I think, was just over 2. So, you know, that would have been one that we'd expected. I guess the other one would have been the one that we'd have expected to score as well, the one that he did score.
But it's those types of chances that I guess we need to be clinical. We need to take our chance, and it's fine margins, as somebody mentioned on our reviews and everything else. Those are the sorts of opportunities that sort of come begging, or at least come back to sort of haunt us later on in the season. Hopefully we're not ruining this chance later on in April or May. Hopefully we're not anywhere near that relegation scrap. I think it's quite unfair to say the R word at this stage of the season anyway. But I think those are the opportunities that we need to take. And Danny Ings would have been putting his air out when come that final whistle.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you were heading off to Brighton on Saturday, were you feeling negative? Were you feeling really worried? Or did you think that the game that you'd seen against Liverpool showed you that we were already moving in the right direction, already recovering pretty well from the first game against Burnley?
Yeah, well, so let's write off the first game. It was a total anomaly, if you like. But I guess Burnley played to their advantage in the wind and rain conditions. We couldn't do with it at all. But the last 15 minutes or the last quarter of an hour, well, it's the same thing, really, of the Liverpool game gave us a bit of hope and optimism, didn't it? You know, and fair play to Saints. We've come out again straight out of the traps. Well, a bit slow to start, in fact, against Brighton, but we grew into the game. We managed to get into our rhythm of things against Brighton, and if we can keep this consistency, then we will be certainly a tough team to beat over the course of the season.
Yeah, so I want to pick up on that, because you would have thought, seeing how well we finished against Liverpool, apart from the finishing, you'd have thought we would have started quite well against Brighton. But Brighton, they're playing pretty well under Graham Potter. Ex-Saint, I think, what was it, like 8 games back in the mid-90s he played for us. But we didn't start well, did we?
Fun fact, before we get on to Brighton, Graham Potter actually featured in the 6-3 demolition of Man United. I think you might remember an Eyal Berkovic hat-trick on the day, and to
No,
to, I guess...
Was it? No, it was Eggleston's hat trick.
Austin's
Berkovic
sorry.
had 2.
Yeah. He still scored, though, didn't he? 2, and Tiz got the other one. But truth be told, that was not the grey shirts game.
No.
A lot of people get that confused, I guess. But moving into Brighton, though, yeah, certainly gave us some optimism from the Liverpool game. And, Graham Potter, he got his team... they started quite well, didn't they? 4 points in the first 2 games, a 3-0 win away at Watford. And, a draw against West Ham. And you thought that Brighton, I think they were probably favourite before kickoff on Saturday. And to be honest, I wasn't feeling too confident. So at 3 o'clock on Saturday, I would have taken a point.
Really? That surprises me. I mean, I predicted that we would draw this one in my little kind of like chat group. But fair play to my brother and my dad both predicted 2-0 wins for Saints, as did Mark Lawrenson. So, I think it's terrible, isn't it, when he gets it right? I mean,
I think us as Saints fans, we kind of overthink things, don't we?
Yeah.
We sort of think about all criterias and opportunities missed, opportunities gained, XG, stats, everything that comes into the equation of a Saints fan. And I think generally we're a sort of pessimistic bunch, aren't we? We sort of fear for the worst. So coming off the back of 2 defeats in the first for the start of the season wouldn't give us too much optimism.
No. But the funny thing is, it was a pretty poor start. But do you think the tackle, was it Andone on Valerie? I mean, was that the turning point for us? Brighton going down to 10 men, or were they still better than us? Right through until at least part way through the second half.
I think it was certainly a turning point. And to be honest, if we look at that, firstly, it was a disgusting, disgraceful challenge, well above his knee. And I think Valerie has come off as a precaution in that second half. But Andoni deserves everything that he's got for this 3-match ban. And apparently the FA might even look into it a little bit further because of the conduct of it. And even the Brighton fans that I spoke to after the game and shared a drink with, good lads, actually, the chaps from the Albion Roar who we spoke to for our preview show, really were saying so many sort of nasty things about Andoni. So they're kind of brushing their hands of him, washing their hands of Andoni. They don't want to see him play for the football club if he's going to make a tackle. Yeah, going to make tackles like that. So the Brighton supporters...
I mean, it did look like Valerie was lucky to come away with both legs after that.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, he tried to sit on him to try and hide him from the referee.
That wasn't going to work, was it?
But, fair play to Graham Potter after the game. He's apologised. I don't think he saw too much of it. Otherwise, I don't think he would have shook his hand as he come off the field on Saturday, because it was right on the other side of the pitch from the dugouts. I guess he's obviously seen it back on the replays, and he's as disgusted as the fan base are as well. So, I mean, if we look at the game as well, I think we almost invited them back into the game. And funnily enough, we got the VAR decision for us. Dunk with the header on the corner, with one of the most blatant offsides and sort of goalkeeper interference you'll see all season.
Yeah, people are still complaining about that, though, aren't they?
It's a clear and obvious decision. You cannot deny that one. But even at the time, we were still unsure what was happened here. In real time, it looked like it was an offside position, but they had to go to VAR just to, I guess, sort of please the person, just to please the referee's job. Just to give them a sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty weird, isn't it? But I mean, how did it feel in the stadium? Kind of, did you think they were going to get a goal, or were you pretty confident that VAR was going to turn that around?
I think we were pretty confident it was going to turn around. Anybody could see it from all around the ground, could see it was a clear and obvious offside, but they had to go to VAR because those are the decisions that are a hot topic right now. But I mean, even at 10 men, we sort of tried to make a hard work of it, didn't we? We haven't been sort of, convincing in our victories, even in the last sort of 6 months before the end of the season. was always sort of making hard work of it, even Huddersfield at the end of the season, a team that was already dead and buried, coming away with a point. Just sort of typical Saints, I guess, inviting the team back into the football game. But we've come back out of the second half, straight at the traps, and I'm sure we'll get on to Djenepo in a moment.
Yeah, I mean, Djenepo, incredibly exciting. That second half, I mean, before we get on to Djenepo, do you think the system was working better, the 4-2-2-2, which, I mean, Ralph kind of used it successfully last season against Brighton. Did it work better today than last time round, or is it the best we've seen the system working? And I suppose the other thing as well, Freddie, which I don't know if you can kind of shed some light on, how did it look as the players were set up? Because if you looked at the kind of team lineup, you wouldn't have necessarily thought that was a 4-2-2-2 formation that was going to be played. You would have thought it was kind of maybe a 5-3-2 or a 5-4-1 type formation.
Yeah, look, I mean, when the teams were announced at 3 o'clock, I think 2 o'clock, I think we were all surprised to see Danso start at left back. But fair play to him, he was composed, looked quite natural in that position, and really put a foot wrong. I think he gave the ball away maybe once or twice in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. But other than that, looked quite composed and quite natural in that position. Obviously, we're not going to expect him to get forward and have those marauding, overlapping runs like we see from Bertrand or Valerie on the other side. But it almost appears that we are light in options at fullback at the moment. But I mean, Ralph's come out after the game and said, "Hey, I was going to do that anyway." So I don't know whether he's just saying that because it happened anyway. It's like saying, sort of, "I told you so," really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an interesting one. And then also the way we finished the game in terms of lineup, I thought was quite interesting because he brought Jack Stevens on, and then obviously we had like Redmond, Djenepo, and Buffon all on the pitch at the same time. We're all kind of quite similar-ish players, or you kind of expect similar outputs from them. How was that working at the end? Because it looked like the kind of thing that would be terribly frightening for an opposition defender, but also maybe quite appealing for an opposition attacker.
Yeah, I mean, those three are luxury players. I don't think we can afford to have them all on the pitch at the same time. And as you say, it's frightening for defenders. And we've seen already now that three of them working together to score that third goal. Even where I guess both the goals, in fact, Djenepo straight off the bench with almost his first touch. Buffon combining with Redmond for the second goal, and it's a frightening proposition. But I don't know how and where we're going to fit him into the 4-2-2-2 formation. Do we play Redmond up front as a centre forward alongside Ings and Adams, or one of them going to be pushed out? And to be honest, I'm not sure Djenepo and Buffon will be able to put in the hard work to track back and really push up high on the pitch of the intense sort of approach that Ralph demands.
I mean, that's an interesting point, because there were some signs that Djenepo was willing to do the tracking back. I think he made some tackles and challenges and interceptions after he came on. There was also one where he did very, very well in our own box, but it also left me kind of a little bit with my fist in my mouth of just like, oh, if he gets that wrong, that's a penalty to Brighton. And having a little look back at his performances at Standard Liège, he does like a yellow card, Djenepo.
Indeed, yes. I mean, he's come on now twice and he's got 2 yellow cards, right? I think that's something close to. But there was one thing that made me laugh, actually. He's been on the pitch just after his goal, actually. He's running around like a headless chicken, full of energy. And the foul was comedic, you know. He just clumsily clatters into the defender. He sort of struggled to sort his feet out, and he gets a yellow card for his efforts.
And here's the big question. Is Djenepo the real deal?
Well, we've been asking that question this week on our website. Is Djenepo the new Mane? For me, I don't think we should be so hastily making this decision already. Great, he's already had this impact sort of in his second game, but give him some time. Let's see the consistency. I think we should keep our feet on the ground at the moment. You know, Moussa Djenepo's got a lot of potential, and that's the word that we always sort of throw around the place. But let's see how he develops. Let's see if he can create more goals, and then we can start running that label against his name. Is he the new Mane?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Do you really want someone to be the new Mane, or maybe he's just going to be the Djenepo, and we'll be talking about Djenepo, and we'd have forgotten Mane, and then people would kind of go, "Oh, were you there when that Premier League fastest hat trick happened?" You'd be like, "Oh yeah, who was that guy? Yeah, oh yeah, Mane. Man, this Djenepo guy's great, isn't he?" That's kind of where we want to be getting to.
I think we're forgetting as well that Sadio Mane played out. He was so inconsistent. He'd score sort of 2-3 goals, burst of goals, a flurry of goals at the beginning of the season, and then he went absolutely quiet sort of over the Christmas period and winter, and then came back out again in spring. So he hibernates. So let's hope Djenepo doesn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, two kind of like wonderfully exciting players to watch. So I'm sure loads of Saints fans who haven't managed to get down to St Mary's yet or get along to the game will be looking forward to seeing Djenepo. Lots of people are probably looking forward to seeing Boufal kind of getting some game time as well, and seeing if Ralph can make something more of him. Who was your man of the match for the game against Brighton?
I mean, Djenepo's got to be up there, isn't it? But I think I will probably go for Redmond. He was voted the official Premier League man of the match. And I think, not only is his goal is up there to secure the victory, send us home with 3 points, but it's the work that he's doing off the ball. It's the link-up play, drawing defenders away, and he's obviously played 90 minutes, so perhaps that pips him ahead of Boufal and Djenepo in that sort of nomination, if you like. And Redmond has looked lively this season as well in the 3 games that we played. Obviously, we know that he was the man of the player of the season last year, and it looks like he's now continuing that form into this season, which is great to see, because with a player like Redmond, we need him to be fit and firing on all cylinders, and if he can score again at the weekend, then he'll be I guess a cheap option for fantasy Premier League managers.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie, I'm glad you brought up fantasy football, and I have no idea why you have, because your Alfa Romeo 11.
I've had a stinker this week.
Yeah, it's not looking good. And actually, in the league of Southampton FC podcasters, you appear to be bottom of the table.
And who's top? Just tell us all, John.
Oh yeah, that would be me. Yeah. It's a rare moment, and I'm going to enjoy this moment before I kind of like lose interest and get bored and plummet down towards the bottom of the table. Yeah, pretty good week for me. Aguero, Redmond, Salah, and Jimenez all getting the big points for me. So, well, I mean, I think this is good, isn't it? First 3 games of the season, we've seen a terrible performance against Burnley. Perhaps a little bit unlucky, but who doesn't know that when you go to Burnley you're going to have to face wind and rain and hoofball? We should have been better prepared for it. Game against Liverpool could have been dead and buried in that game. We could have also got a point, and I think that's positive. And Brighton away started poorly but came away with 3 points and played quite well towards the end. So a fairly mixed bag at the start of the season, but I think we're moving in the right direction. We're certainly improving.
Yeah, look, Saints notoriously slow starters, aren't we? I think there was a statistic doing the rounds before we kicked off on Saturday. How many games Southampton have lost in August in the Premier League era? 40. That's 2 more than the next team. I think it was Newcastle. And funny enough, they'd won at the weekend as well. So we're still top of that table in games lost in August. Let's hope we're not there. Come 5 o'clock on 31st of August.
Yeah. Before we get on to this week's games, so I mean, obviously we've got Fulham tomorrow night in the Carabao Cup. We've got Manchester United at the weekend. I wonder if we want to cover off some of the other happenings around St Mary's. Fraser Forster has moved to Celtic on a year-long loan. Fraser Forster, I mean, we've talked about him so much, Fraser Forster, on this podcast in previous episodes. And I think, rather than kind of like picking over the bones of what's gone wrong for him, I'd like to wish him luck in his move to Celtic. I genuinely hope it works out for him. And I've got to say that when he was at his best, I think he was one of the best goalkeepers I've ever seen. And I wonder, Freddie, if I can push you for a favourite memory of big Fraser Forster.
I think one comes to mind is his 10-save thriller and the 0-0 classic at the Emirates about 4 years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, in that run of, I think, 10 clean sheets. In fact, Fraser Forster went on to break the clean sheet record for Southampton Football Club that season, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Saints record holder.
Indeed, I think that game comes to mind, live long in the memories, and that will be synonymously known as the Fraser Forster heroic game, stopping Ozil with his face from about 3 yards out. Anything and everything that Arsenal shot his way, he managed to get something of his big sort of Man Mountain frame on it.
I mean, I think it was astonishing, wasn't it? I mean, presumably, were you there, Freddie, in kind of behind the goal with the Saints fans in the Emirates? Because it was just like an onslaught, wave after wave of Arsenal attacks, and somehow, even point blank ones, Fraser Forster was getting off the line, somehow scrabbling away.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a heroic performance that night for Fraser Forster. But unfortunately for him, he fell out of favour, didn't he? He picked up a couple of niggling injuries, saw himself on the bench, and it kind of just spiraled from there, really. And he's worked so hard recently to actually get himself back into the first team frame, because he sort of fell off the face of the planet for about 12 months. We hear that he fell into a bit of depression, got into a dark state. So it's really great to see him sort of back, I guess, healthy now, if you want for a better word. And really good for him to get a loan back to the club that he's obviously loved and adored sort of before he's come to Saints. So great to see him get on the field once again for Celtic. And, as you say, we wish him good luck. He hasn't sort of really put a foot wrong. Obviously, there are mistakes that are notoriously known with Forster now over a couple of years. But, I mean, let's bask in, I guess, the highlights of him rather than sort of picking the bones from his faults.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's remember the good times, because that game against Arsenal, I will never ever forget. It was so impressive. So the next one I think I want to talk about is, there's been another out which happened a couple of weeks ago with Danny Roll leaving Saints. He was Ralph Hasenhüttl's assistant manager, but we've now got his replacement in, Richard Kitzbichler. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not sure. Any knowledge of the new guy, Freddie?
About as much as you can write on the back of a postage stamp, to be honest. Well, obviously he's managed in Germany, hasn't he? He's been an assistant with some of the big clubs over there. He's been away in China, one of the big clubs. But I think we know he was a sports analyst, sort of scout. So he's got that fine sort of element to his game to really fine-tune the details, and I guess that's what Ralph is really looking for is someone that can go through the details in a fine-tooth comb, if you like, to find any sort of faults and opportunities with the oppositions, with the current personnel. So I think he fits the system, he fits the philosophy of what Ralph is looking for. And I guess Ralph really wanted someone to get it. He wanted someone to understand the culture, in fact, of the football club.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that's the idea with the new guy. So he's been brought in from Chinese Super League, which is obviously not necessarily a place that you would expect to be bringing in kind of assistant coaches. But he also he worked at a different Red Bull previously to Ralph, and it's interesting. You've picked up on the kind of fine analysis. As well as being his first team assistant coach, he's also going to be the video opposition analyst coach. So he's going to be, that's his kind of speciality, is like looking at the opposition, picking out the finer details, understanding where the weak points are, understanding where Saints can exploit. So I think, very welcome addition to the side. I think, it's invaluable in work to have someone who can kind of bounce ideas off and who you can trust 100%. Even if Ralph has kind of 100% confidence in what he's doing, just having another guy to sound ideas off is no doubt going to help. And so I think that's going to be useful as well.
Yeah, 100%. I guess that's what the fans were asking for as well in the recent fans forum. We trust him to do the job to his ability, but we do worry about Ralph. He's a workaholic by all means, and I think what it is as well. I guess what it is of almost any work sort of way of working. You can see things in your own avenues. You can see things in your own sort of way of seeing things. But if you pass it on to somebody else to, I guess, analyze it or just evaluate it, they can see faults, they can see opportunities. So just great to see another person there, another pair of eyes to sort of offer a different way of thinking, offer different philosophies, or a way of working. So I mean, good to see another assistant in there. I don't think he'll be. I think he's a first team assistant, not sort of necessarily the assistant manager. But Ralph has got a good team now, working in all different sort of corners of the football club. So I think he's got it covered.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the listeners, kind of Neil Weston, he emailed in and was looking for a little bit of discussion on Danny Roll's departure and how that might be affecting the squad, and he was worried a bit that that Roll might be Ralph's Joachim Low or Love. I never know how you're supposed to pronounce his name.
Jürgen Love, isn't it?
Yeah, and Neil's kind of worry was that Roll might be the actual tactician behind organising the team and training and pre-match, and he was saying he hoped that wasn't the case, but I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? Saints always start the season badly, so I don't know how much we should read into the game against Burnley, and I think we should just really probably be looking at the next few games where we're going to start to see what's Ralph done over the summer, what are we capable of this season. I suppose a quick word on the game against Fulham. So Fulham, Premier League season last season, Championships team this season. Always a fantastic away day. A little bit gutted I'm not living in London anymore, Freddie, so I won't be making the trip across to Craven Cottage tomorrow night. Are you heading up for that one?
Well, we'll be with sort of 2,000. It's sold out support. It's difficult for me personally because it's come straight after the bank holiday and we're back to work on the usual daily grind. But we've been to Fulham now for the last sort of 2 years in one competition and in the Premier League last season. So I think I've actually, in fact, has it been twice this year alone, is it? I don't know, I'm getting a bit too ahead of myself. But hey, Fulham's a good away day, been there many times. And we'll be back by a sold-out Saints support. They were sold quicker than hotcakes. A lot of people actually sort of aggrieved, if you like, or disappointed they didn't get notifications about the tickets when the tickets were available. So a lot of people missing out, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, there is also the neutral stand as well. So if you haven't yet got your ticket and you are, sat there listening to this podcast on your commute in this morning, have a little look around because you might be able to get in the neutrals section. I've heard some rumours.
Can I jump in there, actually, John? Sorry. They've actually closed the Riverside stand, which is where a lot of the sort of neutral tickets were based. So that's why we were given a lower allocation. Because I think last season and for the Cup, we were given sort of the 4 blocks, the entire stand behind the goal in the Putney end, I believe. I did my research this morning. But it is the Riverside stand. They are redeveloping that to increase the capacity and to increase the economy around the football ground too. So that's why we're beginning a lower allocation for Tuesday night's game.
Freddie, there you go. Invaluable knowledge on the podcast. Obviously, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, then none of this matters to you. And we should probably start talking about the Manchester United game on Saturday. I'm quite excited about this, Freddie. I mean, not least from the fact that I'm making the trip all the way from West Devon to St Mary's. But I actually think we've got quite a good chance of winning this. I've had my doubts about Solskjaer's ability as a football manager. I don't think he has the even the same level of ability as our manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, probably not even as much ability as Graham Potter, although he comes from a similar sort of background. Now, if Manchester United appointed Graham Potter as their first team coach, and that's not even taking into account him kind of managing Swansea for a bit, people would have been like, what? Who is this guy? Why are they appointing him? Solskjaer is totally underqualified for his job as Manchester United manager. They've had their absolute shocker as well, haven't they? At the weekend of losing at home to Crystal Palace for the first time in like 100 and bazillion years, or at least since the 1980s.
Yeah, I mean, to quote a famous phrase from a popular Manchester United fan channel, he got the job on a technicality. Solskjaer, legend, Man United, but as you say, hugely underqualified. I think only upon the recommendation of maybe the people on the board. And I think he got relegated with Cardiff. He's won a couple of leagues with Molde over in Norway. But what else has he done? I mean, they got off to a flying start at the beginning of this Premier League season, 4-0 victory against Chelsea, and I thought they could build some consistency there. Followed up with a draw? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not following them too closely.
It was a draw, 1-1 against Wolverhampton Wanderers. With,
that's right, on the Monday night.
Pogba taking a terrible penalty.
I think it was more of a fantastic save, to be honest. But Patricio's already obviously done his homework, and even they've missed another penalty at the weekend against Crystal Palace. So they are not taking their chances. They've obviously sold Lukaku, who famously or infamously, if you like, given us so many problems over the years. Big, brutish, kind of heavy centre forward, and I remember last season in Mark Hughes' last game when Lukaku tumbling over his own shoelaces, claiming for a foul. So we won't be seeing any of those pantomimes this weekend.
No, I mean, I'm absolutely delighted that Lukaku is not going to be playing, to be honest, because he is a player that frightens me. Here's an interesting stat, Freddie. So I know you shouldn't read too much in the Premier League table after 3 games, but after 3 games, Manchester United are in 5th, which you think, okay, well, they're doing quite well. Southampton, after 3 games, are in 18th in the relegation zone. You're thinking, right, well, that's hopefully not going to be where we're going to be finishing. But what I think the really bizarre thing is between 4th, Leicester City, and Newcastle in 19th, you've got every team has won 1 game. Yeah. And so we've got a range from 3 points, 4 points to 5 points. And, it's a little bit of a bizarre start to the season. Are we more evenly matched? Is this going to be one of those kind of like Leicester City seasons where we see a couple of teams drop out of the big 6 and we start to see some of the mid-table teams making a bit more of a push towards the top half? I mean, I'm looking at that game against Manchester United. I'm feeling fairly confident. I think our manager's better than the Manchester United manager. I think our manager's better than the Chelsea manager. I think our manager's probably better than the Leicester City and the Everton managers as well, who you'd kind of have up there as the kind of best of the rest sort of group.
If you want to go through the rest of the league, I think this is probably the best opportunity that the best of the rest have got this season. You've got 2 hugely underqualified managers in Man United and Chelsea, both legends of their football club, and got it on the technicality and got it on the recommendation of who they know within the football club. So this is a fantastic opportunity for the likes of, I guess you can go to us to some extent, but I don't think we'll be pushing too closely for that division of the football clubs. But the likes of Leicester, Wolves, I think West Ham might be out there. Everton will want to be in that bracket too. We'll want to be pushing on for the top 6.
Yeah, and hopefully we can help keep things heading that way by inflicting another defeat on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What do you think is going to be the key for Southampton? Is it going to be the pressing the Manchester United defence, or is it just going to be the fact that they don't have Lukaku and they don't have that kind of like terrifying presence of the Manchester United teams of old?
Well, they've lost that reputation now, haven't they? They haven't got that never say die attitude, the sort of Fergie time that you saw over 20 odd years. As soon as they lost Ferguson, they lost their identity, in my opinion. They went with a unproven again manager, and they've taken huge gambles in the last 6 years since he's retired or so. I think 2013 he retired, and they've not been as fearsome as sort of unbeatable. The famous Man United that you would know. We've got an opportunity now to take 3 points off another big top 6 side, and I guess if they do finish out top 6 along with perhaps Chelsea, do we still call them a top 6 side, or just because of their reputation? But look, we've got a victory over Tottenham last season, a victory over Arsenal. Who's to say that we can't do it this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think we will, to be honest. That's what I'm hoping for. Obviously as well, I've had to kind of like reach into my wallet and pick out £50, Freddie, to sit behind the goal and watch Saints at home. So upsetting. But at least I'm not in one of the sides paying £65. Anyway,
it's not a disgrace actually. The ticket system this season. For people like you and maybe sort of handful of those hundreds of others that can't afford, or in fact that live away from the city, that can't afford to get to every game, they've priced you out, in my opinion, and it's a huge sort of bullet in the foot, if you like. They shot themselves in the foot, the football club, because I guess I understand what they're trying to do is kind of price out the away fans in the home sections, such as the Liverpools, the Man United, the Chelseas, etc. That you get a lot of the sort of people around any town will want to go see their football club, but you've alienated a small section of the support. But I do understand the reason why they are trying other things, and that's introducing the £399 season ticket. So over the course of a season, that would be effectively £21 per game. But as for people like you and hundreds of others, you're paying for a one-off game, which is going to cost you almost twice or three times as you would for an ordinary match, which is a huge shot in the foot. And I think maybe there should be some sort of discount in other areas just to kind of compensate for that. But because, £50 is a lot of money for an adult ticket. I think a friend of mine wanted to take his boy to a Liverpool game, a couple of weeks ago, and they wanted £80 for a one adult and one child.
It's mad.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get the reason for. I mean, it's the other thing as well is that I noticed with the tickets you couldn't buy it unless you had kind of history from like the 2013-14 seasons. They're definitely trying to limit who can buy the tickets, but I think that's the better way to do it rather than kind of these ridiculous prices. Because also, if you're a tourist who is going to go and see Liverpool once in a year or whatever, or Manchester United once in a year, you're much more likely to pay £50 than perhaps the people like myself or countless others who maybe go to like 5 or 10 games a year, where the price of the tickets really does make a difference. Anyway, I don't want to get into a really big discussion about it, because I think all Premier League ticket prices should be capped at the £30 like they've done for the away. I think it would make it so much better. I also think they should bring back safe standing, which would also make it so much better. Freddie, what I want to get into now is some listener correspondence. How's the YouTube chat going? Is there anything that we want to pick up from that? Any questions that have come our way?
We've seen a few comments now. Actually, Martin just commented and said, "Hey, go and watch Eastleigh for £7.50." So, there is a worrying trend. Actually, a lot of Premier League, I guess, former Premier League fans have gone to watch their non-league team and support non-league football, which is great to see that. Grassroots football, sort of booming now at the moment. And in fact, as we speak, I think the Eastleigh were in fact on BT Sport this evening. So there is a demand for it. Probably not a huge demand, but great to see non-league football. And to be honest, I do like going out to see Eastleigh and other surrounding non-league football clubs when I can, when it doesn't clash with the Saints. But there are other questions coming here. Good to see Chris in the chat, Matthew as well, commenting a few times. And there's a lot of discussion, I guess, how much Ralph will be worth if we get into the top 10 or top 5. And we hear that he's one of the top 5 highest paid managers in the league.
Blimey, yeah. Okay. There's some interesting stuff to get in there. Lots of comments about the ticket pricing. Lots of people reckon we're going to win against Manchester United. That's good. Lots of people are kind of very positive about Fraser Forster heading off to Celtic as well. On Twitter, we've had nice stuff from a few kind of regular listeners like James, who this is the point where it all freezes, and Dan as well. But also we've had Egil Ostenstat and Leandre Griffith kind of been in contact on Twitter as well. So good to know that they're listening to the Saints FC podcast. That is excellent. Obviously, if you do want to get in contact with the Saints FC podcast, you can do saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. If we manage to do this live stuff on YouTube again, you can do it on the YouTube chat. We're also on Twitter @SaintsFC podcast. Freddie, do you have any other business?
Actually,
yeah.
In fact, whilst you are downtown on Saturday, we're hoping to catch up with the guys from the In That Number podcast. sort of like a podder's piss up, if you like.
Okay.
After the game, if we have time. So I guess if anybody's around or sort of going to the game, come find us at one of the local breweries, either the Tappet or the Unity Brewery, literally right around the corner from the ground, and supporting local brewers.
Sounds like a fantastic idea. Right, Freddie, I'll let you say ta-ta to our listeners.
Ta-ta, listeners.
Cheerio, everyone. Let's hope for 2 more wins this week.